Hey, anatomy. What's up? It's Mr. Greer. We're going to go over the information for days 1 and 2. If you're reading and taking notes out of your book, that's fine. I'm going to provide the information on these slideshows. So this is for days 1 and 2 up through page 228. What is the PNS, the peripheral nervous system? The peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves and scattered groups of ganglia. These are nerve fibers found outside the CNS. A nerve structure. Nerve structure is a bundle of neuron fibers outside the CNS. Each one is protected by connective tissue. There's 3 main connective tissue protection types here. We have the endoneurium. This is delicate tissue. It surrounds each individual neuron. The perineurium binds together groups of fibers into bundles called fascicles. These fascicles are several neurons together. Epineurium, these bind all the fascicles together to form a cord-like nerve. This is a lot like an electrician. In electrical work, they take wires and bundle them together in larger and larger bundles so they can carry more and more current. This is the exact same thing that happens for your body. You're bundling up these neurons so that you can carry more current and more signal, therefore getting more complicated responses. Nerve classification. In the PNS, we have mixed nerves. These carry both sensory and motor fibers. All your spinal nerves are this type. These are the ones that they give you both information, so they both receive and send messages. Afferent/sensory nerves. These only carry impulses towards the CNS, and efferent/motor nerves. They carry impulses away from the CNS. Cranial nerves. You guys are already pretty much experts on these. When we come back, we'll do a cranial nerves makeup test because we didn't do one on Wednesday. So if you want to stay up on those, make sure those are on page in your textbook 220 and 221 if you want to re-up on those. Spinal nerves and nerve plexuses. So we've talked about cranial nerves. Now let's talk about spinal nerves. These are large nerves that are formed from ventral and dorsal roots of the spinal cord. They're named for the region of the spinal cord from which they form. The cranial nerves, they're named for function. Olfactory was smell, ocular motor was movement of the eyes. These are for where they are. There's 31 of them, so they're a lot more complicated than just our 12. So I'm not gonna make you know all of them individually. They contain both motor and sensory fibers because you can feel and move your arms, so you have to be able to both have motor and sensory ability. Damage to a spinal nerve results in both loss of sensation and paralysis of the body parts served. So if you have a damage to your spinal nerve on the right-hand side of your body in the brachial area, you would expect to have loss of function in your right arm. This is why people who have cervical damage will lose function depending on where it is, quadriplegic versus paraplegic, waist down, neck down, whatever it is, depending on where these spinal nerves get severed. Plexuses. These serve the motor and sensory needs of the limb. A plexus is a complex bundling of nerves. It's kind of like a transformer or like an electrical relay. There's a lot of signal coming in. It gets all sorted and then gets sent out to the right area. But what these allow for is complex signals to be sent, such as typing a PowerPoint for your anatomy and physiology class. You use all your fingers and they're all thinking independently. You don't consciously sit down and think, okay, I need to type ALLOWS. Your body kind of automatically does it already because these nexuses have a lot of functioning ability. The 4 plexuses, like I said, are named for the area of the vertebral column they originate from. The 3 that you're familiar with are cervical, lumbar, and sacral. The new term for you, cervical neck, lumbar, lower back, and sacral at the very tailbone. The fourth one that's a little new to you, brachial, where you would normally expect thoracic. Brachial is a word that we use to describe the region of the arm and the forearm. So it's in around the same area as your thoracic vertebrae, but we use brachial instead because it just innervates the brachial areas. The autonomic nervous system. This is the motor subdivision of the PNS. So the PNS, underneath of it, you have the autonomic nervous system. This controls body activities automatically. Regulates your cardiac muscles, your heartbeat, your smooth muscles, so your intestines, and your visceral organs and blood vessels. Each blood vessel, each artery is a tiny little muscle, and it kind of helps pump the blood through with the heart. You don't consciously think about, well, I need to pump, blood down to my left leg and then pump it back up to my lungs. No, you automatically do that. The autonomic nervous system is a large part in maintaining homeostasis. Having all these organs and your heart, everything automatically function and keep you alive is really nice. We often call this the involuntary nervous system because you don't have any choice over it. You can kind of slow down your heart rate if you try really hard, but the minute you stop thinking about it, your body takes back over. Somatic and autonomic nervous system compared. Somatic controls your skeletal muscles, so these are your voluntary muscles, where autonomic controls the smooth muscles, such as your viscera, cardiac, and your smooth muscle. Cell bodies in the somatic are inside the CNS, and their axon extends outside, where the ANS uses two motor neurons. One, the preganglionic axon. This is the cell body inside the brain or the nerve or the spinal column. So it starts inside the CNS like the somatic, and then its axon leaves, where it synapses with the second neuron, the postganglionic. The second neuron. The second neuron, the body is usually not inside the central nervous system. What it does have, though, is it has this postganglionic axon. This is the axon from that second neuron to whatever organ it's serving. So instead of using one neuron like the somatic, now you have to use two for the ANS. There's two parts to the ANS. There's your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. It mobilizes the body during extreme situations, such as extreme fear, when you're exercising hard, or when you go under anger or rage. Your parasympathetic nervous system. This is called your rest and digest system. It allows you to unwind and relax. It allows you to relax after a hard day and allows your body, which can go out and run a couple miles, to also be able to sit in bed quietly and go to sleep. Anatomy of the sympathetic division. This is also called the thoracolumbar division. Very rarely you'll hear it called this. This is because it stretches from your thorax all the way down to your lumbar. We don't really call it that. We will usually call it the sympathetic division. The sympathetic chain lies around the vertebral column on either side of the vertebral column. And this is where this is where that synapse is for those ganglia. So the preganglionic neuron brings it down, and then the postganglionic nerve carries the signal to the organ. Anatomy of your parasympathetic, your rest and digest. First, your neurons are located in the brain. Most importantly, most of them are located in the vagus nerve. These send axons along the cranial nerves to synapse with the second motor neuron. These ones are more worried about affecting organs. So the terminal ganglion, this is the synapse between the motor neurons in the parasympathetic division, is really short. So these second motor neurons are usually very short. They just usually are almost right at whatever organ they are affecting. So once the signal travels down the long preganglionic neuron, it gets to the terminal ganglion and then is immediately dispersed to whatever organ it is affecting. Cholinergic versus adrenergic fibers. Cholinergic fibers, they release acetylcholine. This is part of your rest and digest. It's part of your parasympathetic nervous system. And then our other fibers are adrenergic fibers. These release norepinephrine, which is your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. We are going to stop here today, but we're going to talk more about both the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, and then as developmental aspects of the nervous system. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. I will be putting out more of these as we go through more material. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe.